I love to see the towns passing by and to ride these rails neath God's blue sky. Let me travel this land from the mountains to the sea, 'cause that's the life I believe He meant for me. And when I'm gone and at my grave you stand, say God called home your rambling man.
Welcome to Ramblin' Man Podcast, episode number 78. This one's with Erica Zazo, and we talk about travel writing. It's great to have Erica on the episode. If you'd like to follow along on her adventures, you can find her online at authory.com/Erica Zazo. That's AUTHORY.com/ERICAZAZO. Or you can follow along with her on Instagram and Twitter at OneCuriousTRVLR. And that's one spelled out. Appreciate Erica being on the episode. Be sure to give her a follow on Instagram and Twitter and tell her the Ramblin' Man sent you. No sponsor this week. There's a lot going on in the world right now, and if you really want to help, really want to give back, really want to show support, find Black-owned businesses in your community and support them, but don't just support them now and get a pat on the back. Support them in perpetuity. And if you'd like to give any money, go to blacklivesmatter.com and give money there. Find a local chapter and do what you can, no matter what. Thank you again for listening. Without much further ado, here's the episode. Well, what are you drinking? This will be a good start. What are you drinking?
Yeah. I was telling you about how, like, one of the things I really love to do is like find trails that are right next to or nearby driving distance from a tap room. Mm-hmm. So, we went to the hilliest spot in Chicago, which is not super hilly. It's not like the hills of Tennessee, but, it's a place called Palos Hills, and it's southwest of the city. And then we found a tap room there. It's called Imperial Oak Brewing. And as you can expect in Chicago with COVID, we're trying to find all these outdoor places to go. And they actually had a bunch of like really cool fire pits set up. And cool. It was only 10 minutes from the trailhead. So this is a Saison, like a farmhouse Saison from them. And it's called The Farmer's Daughter. And it's good.
Yeah, it's... Did you get to go to Market Square while you were here? I know we didn't when we went on the grill, but now during COVID, what they did was they kind of fenced off Market Square to where the restaurants could allow seating outside so they could stay open and still do it, which a lot of people now are like, can we just keep it that way? Because it's so nice.
Yeah. I think I haven't seen it personally, but in Chicago, they're doing the same where they're blocking off like, streets that normally would have cars whizzing by, which is dangerous in itself because people go to these like little neighborhoods to like go to the bars and drink. And now they've completely blocked them off. So you've got sections of different neighborhoods in the city that you can just walk throughout the street. And it's helpful because there's so many side streets in the city. It's just like, you got to drive around, but,
that's great. Yeah, it's a little wild here. Like we have a few music festivals, and one of the ones we had, Rhythm and Blooms. Maybe I shouldn't name it. I guess that's okay. Rhythm and Blooms is gone, so I won't be telling any tales. Mm-hmm. But some friends of mine helped run it, and they were like, "We'd love to shut down streets to be able to have more music on the street or just easier pathways for the people." They're like, "It is so expensive." Because the cops, they have to charge a certain amount and all this stuff. And they're like, they're a little nonprofit. And they're like, we can't afford all that. We just want the street. It'll be so much better and easier for everybody if we could just shut down the street that nobody hardly drives on. And I think they finally talked the cops into giving them a break and allowing them to do that where they could shut down like one street, but the cross street they couldn't shut down. So you had to stop there. But then it was like at 8:00 at night on a Sunday, nobody is out there. And it's like, why are we not doing this? This is dumb.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I was going to say, how is it going? Because I saw the thing this morning about Chicago shutting back down. But it seems more, we would like you to do this as opposed to you have to do this.
I was just talking to my friends about this. It's like our numbers are more than double what they were in June when we had like the complete shutdown where it was like you go to the grocery store and there's a line, or literally every establishment is shut down for indoor anything, whether that's like random fact, I do Aikido. Like our Aikido gym had to shut down, or dojo. So we were doing, I was doing virtual martial arts in my living room, which was wild. But it was, it's been interesting to like watch them change the way that they're like messaging this should be a requirement, in my opinion, just because the numbers are now double. But there's been some lawsuits against the governor, and I think that has a lot to play where maybe legally he's feeling like he can't force people to stay home. So it's interesting.
It's insane to me. Like one thing I've been struggling with, do you follow wrestling at all, WWE?
I don't. I have friends who do.
Okay. Have you ever heard of Kane?
Is that a wrestler?
Yes.
Okay, no.
Do you know The Undertaker? I'm going to go for bigger names then.
That sounds more familiar than Kane.
Okay, so The Undertaker had a brother who was another 7 foot tall. I'm doing air quotes for everybody listening. Who had a brother who was also 7 foot tall, and like The Undertaker was, an undead wrestler, and Kane was like a demonic wrestler. So Kane is our mayor. He's our county mayor. Glenn Jacobs is his name, and I'm not kidding. And he is writing this, and here's the not funny part. He is trying like hell to disband and fire our county health board, because he doesn't like that they want to actually make it to where people have to wear masks and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's some bullshit, man.
Yeah.
Like he's like, this is hurting our businesses. I was like, no, if you had taken this seriously 5 months ago, we would be in a lot better place. But you keep shouting freedom. And I'm like,
yeah. It's rough. Like, I mean, I'm on full, let's mandate this thing. Because it's sad. Like, I just think the economic impact it's having longer term is harder for people rather than just let's get through it in a short term. Today I was walking to, run an errand, and, just like there's so many like small like taco shops in the city here. It's like there's so many mom and pop restaurants in the city that either like that don't have the luxury of being on like a giant delivery platform like Grubhub or something like that. And in these places you might not even get your chance to ever go to because you just don't know they exist. But today, the one that I usually walk by, today I saw that it has the brown paper in the windows, and I'm just like, damn, there's another one. So, I think in the city here, most people are wearing them, but I just can't believe the numbers are triple what they were.
Yeah, there's a friend of mine that lives up there, Holly, that I should look up the number. It's an insane number, but it's like she and her husband have run like 4,000 days in a row or something like that.
Wow.
Like they run every single day. I think they're nuts. I would go for 4,000 days in a row drinking beer or eating cookies. I'll eat an Oreo for 4,000 days, damn it. Yeah. But they do that. And I saw that alert this morning and I was like, holy hell, is she not going to be able to, stupid me, read the headline, didn't read and then I finally like, let me read this article first. And I was like, we would prefer you do this. I was like, she can still go run then. It's fine.
Yeah. But, we've got to find our sane things, which is why I'm willing to drive like 40 minutes to hike up a small hill in Chicago and call it an outdoor adventure. But I enjoy it.
Yeah, there's a buddy of mine and I that every Friday we go on a walk together, social distance walk. Like I walk in the street because I don't think a car is going to hurt me. And then he's a lot smaller than me, and he walks on the sidewalk, and we just talk. And it's kind of kept me halfway sane through all this, to be able to still get outside and see somebody every week, no matter what. And make fun of one another, of course, because that's the good parts.
There was a funny thing that happened to me the other day. Speaking of like talking to people, not on the internet and on the computer, there's a house down the street from me that's getting remodeled, and now that I'm working at home and working at my kitchen table all day, I hear things happening in the neighborhood I normally wouldn't. And so these construction workers started yelling at each other, and I had no idea who was yelling. So I opened my window and stuck my head out, and there happened to be a dude walking by immediately when I put my head out. And we just started having a conversation. It's like normally in that situation, like 6 months ago, like you stick your head out of your window in Chicago and you avoid the people down there. But today we were like, or the other day we were having this conversation about these construction workers yelling at each other down the road. So it's bringing light to like small moments of humanity that I wouldn't have given like the time of day to in the past.
Whereas I'm from the South, I'm like, yeah, that's what you do. You just,
fair.
You just make buddies. So see, we'll circle back. I try like hell to stay on topic, even though we random. Now we've got all the sad COVID stuff out of the way, although I'm sure we'll hit on it again. So like early on in this year, in like January and February, did you have like a bunch of trips or travel planned that slowly you just started seeing ticking away?
Yeah. I wish I had a huge schedule. I actually got married in October, and I got a lot of my travel done before that experience of planning a wedding, which is a whole nother story about COVID weddings. But
oh God, yeah.
It's I actually went into this year like wanting to stay local. One of the things I love most about my writing and what I do for fun is like trying to travel in the Midwest and in places that are smaller. And that actually just like worked out in my favor this year. So I've done a ton of camping and local, trips that I've been wanting to do this year. So as fate would have it, I had that happen, but and it worked out for us. So I've been doing a ton of like road trips in the Midwest and driving.
Has that been kind of an eye-opening experience on how different states or different cities are handling all of this? Yeah,
totally. I mean, going to Indiana or Wisconsin and getting into these more rural towns where I don't know, I could see myself living there too. And like, just trusting the fact that there's less people, but lots of no mask, patrons at grocery stores, or even in small towns, like people, working behind the cash register, not wearing one. So, it's been interesting. Thankfully though, when we travel locally this summer, like just keeping in the mindset of bringing everything with us and not really needing to stop unless we really have to. So, totally has been eye-opening.
That's what I did. I've gone to 2 different cabins. And normally if I was going to a cabin or something, I'd bring something to cook like 1 or 2 nights, but then I would usually go out to the nearest city and try barbecue or whatever. And both of those, it's like, nope, I'm locked in this cabin and I'm not going to do much. Although this last time a friend of mine came to town and went with me, and she was like, okay, where are we going today? It's like, damn it.
Yeah.
I was like, there's a fire pit and a great back porch here. Yeah. And I brought 4 books with me.
Yeah.
I'll give you one weird travel tip for North Georgia and southern western North Carolina. If you don't have a Jeep, you can't go on trails. Like we tried to go hiking, and I drive a little Toyota Yaris, and one of them, I actually saw my engine start to smoke because I was trying to get up, and I was like, oh my God. And there was a guy with a Jeep, and he was like, oh yeah, I had to go rent a Jeep because we're here for a week and I couldn't get up here the other day.
Yeah.
Like, what the?
It's a fun way to travel now though. Like even just renting yourself a big car and doing things like that you wouldn't normally do. So I'm sure the car rental industry is booming right now. I have as well gone to a couple of cabins this year. Actually, our honeymoon was a cabin trip, and
nice.
Like, I was actually thankful it was raining for that exact reason of like you saying you had 4 books that you're ready to sit down and read. Cause like we were forced to stay inside, and we had the rustic cabin experience for the first half where we like backpacked in. And then the second half was like at a very fancy Airbnb that we probably shouldn't spend that much money on. But
it's your honeymoon. It's worth it.
Yeah. So it was cool. And, we also drove a Ford Fiesta that could have gotten us into some rough spots in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, but we made it out.
So with kind of wanting to stay in the Midwest or see local a little bit more, have you ever thought about getting like an RV or a camper or something to kind of like, hey, I want to go to Arizona for a long weekend, and it, flights being cost prohibitive and then having to rent a car, all that stuff. Is that something that's kind of maybe a long-term goal for you?
Yeah, I think so. I think I could see myself doing that. I think one thing, I don't see myself in the near term buying like, becoming a nomad, like a nomadic worker. I forget what they're exactly calling it, but what I have seen that's like super interesting that I could see myself doing one day is they're starting to build these like RV or just like nomad community kind of living experiences where you drive your car or your RV. There's a community kitchen in the middle, and you're parked kind of as a group at a spot. And then you can like hop around, bring your car across the country and stay at these places that have all of the fixings like Wi-Fi and shared bathrooms, but then you have the chance to just like take your car and go. So I could totally see myself having a car that had amenities like a bed and things that I don't have to pitch a tent every time, but also having access still to like a community of people for an extended amount of time.
Yeah, it's there's a couple that I know that I'm trying to think how long it's been. It may be close to 10 years ago. They bought an Airstream and fixed it up. And I actually helped them fix it up because they lived like 2 blocks away from me. And they, after about a year of working on it, they quit their jobs and started working. He worked for, was Scripps Networks at the time, Discovery. And she worked in marketing at a company here in town that did, what is it called? It's pesticides, non-chemical, organic pesticides. Oh, which is fascinating to me. Like it's, and, but they both quit. They had a few clients, like they did websites and, digital marketing. And when they started out, like they got a Wi-Fi booster antenna that was new to the market, just given to them if they would talk about it. And it was fascinating to see them go through that transition. Like they went from an Airstream to a bigger old RV to where that company was actually almost like not sponsoring them, but they would write for that company and such. And then they finally ended up on a Winnebago, one of the Sprinter van RVs, which was really nice. That'd be more like your thing. Like it's small enough to where it can fit in like garages and stuff.
Totally. Yeah. And I've got like, I'm still not ready to leave the city yet. Like I love I love my experience of being in the city and then, traveling somewhere else for a little bit, and being able to come back to like the hustle and bustle. I could totally see myself in the middle of Montana one part of my life, but I'm not there yet. So that exactly like having a small hitch to your car and getting an SUV and being able to just take it and go, but also still be able to park it here is very exciting.
Yeah, I'm about, when I travel, about 10 days is when I start getting the itch. I'm like, I need to be back home. I'm ready to be back home. This is too much. Totally.
What do you think about I think it's now a trend of renting somebody else's home for like a longer extended period of time?
Yeah, I've seen that. We're kind of still a little bit of a college town here. So there's a lot of people that will they'll take an Airbnb and rent it for like, the term of a school year while they're getting their masters, working on their masters or something. I think that's fascinating, but that's still, I feel like if I'm going to be tethered like that, I would almost rather be tethered at my home. You know what I mean? Like I would almost rather be able to, I think I would also get a little bit more antsy. Like if I went to Montana or somewhere, I would want to be able to hop around a little bit more. But how about you? Like, would you think of like you all take like a year and be like, we're going to rent out our place in Chicago and we're going to go and stay in one city for 3 months and, you know, and just kind of bounce around like that?
I think so. I mean, I think the dream one day is to live in the woods somewhere. But it's like, which woods? So, you know, is it going to be Maine, Montana, Michigan? I don't know. So the idea of living somewhere for a little bit instead of just taking that big leap and risk to like go move it all out there is exciting. And so I think it's a good possibility that we could see ourselves doing that sometime. But yeah, I think for now I'm learning to like appreciate just my homebodiness and that I figured out how to be a homebody and just travel when I feel like I need it. So
nice.
Stay here for a while.
I have looked into like Montana and Wyoming, just land. I was like, even if I could just buy land and build a house, because, you know, it's getting to the point to where I know that's still expensive as shit, but it's not insane. Like, it's not like you're spending $1 million.
Right.
Like you could get property somewhere way the hell away for not that much anymore. I'm seeing a lot of friends like that here that they live in the city and they're looking at some of the more surrounding counties to be like, I just don't want to have anybody close to me. I've lived in a city where somebody's within a reach of me forever. And I understand that. But for me, it's like, I don't want to have to drive an hour to get to anything to eat or go to a brewery or something. That would drive me nuts. Yeah.
No, it's fair.
Yeah. So I'm going to now go backwards. So did you travel a lot as a kid? Was the fire kind of started there or did it come a little bit later in life?
Yeah. I traveled a lot as a kid because my parents were obsessed with cruising. And like, I was like one of those kids who racked up cruise points, like me and my like white ass suburban family, just going on cruises every year. And that's all we did. So I had this like intense love for the ocean when I was little. And and I never really spent time in the woods because like we would always do beach vacations. And then when I was in college, a friend of mine suggested I do this program called the Student Conservation Association, where you get sent to a national park and then you do conservation work for a week and they'll pay for everything. But you just get to be there and learn. And so I got picked to do it and I got sent again to a beach place, Florida, but we ended up in the Everglades in the back, you know, at a campground in the Everglades, going to do work in the backcountry and doing like, native species protections for both plants and animals. And they were, you know, have big forest fires there or big fires there in the dry season. And so we were clearing out brush that might catch. And it was just like a really eye-opening experience, like that idea of camping and being outside all the time. And so that's really in college when I fell in love with the outdoors and paired my journalism degree with the opportunity to like capture the experience of going into nature. So yeah, that's really how I fell in love with outdoor writing and travel writing, is through that experience. And then pairing that with what I was learning at the time in school.
So what led you to journalism? Were you like somebody who always wrote like stories and stuff as a kid, or? I feel like I've heard other people say this too. They've got that like one teacher who believed in them. And I had this one teacher in 8th grade who was like, you did a really good job on this paper. And it really stuck with me. So yeah, I think I've always been better with words than numbers, and, you know, excelled in like my writing classes versus my, sciencey classes. So yeah. And, it was like, yeah, that 8th grade teacher of mine who believed in my writing skills. Yeah,
and then
kinda.
I was like, what can I do with this? And then, yeah, in school, just found my journalism classes super exciting. And I just kept going for it.
Were you a pretty voracious reader as a kid too, or was it more
Honestly,
about self-creation?
I think for me, it was about self-creation. I'm admittedly I don't read as much as I should or want to. But I absorb magazines really well. And I actually studied broadcast journalism, and I found myself really enjoying writing for the anchors, not being the anchor, but taking what we needed to say and distilling it quickly and efficiently. And so that process of being behind the scenes writing for the anchors at the student news station was really where I fell in love with online and broadcast journalism.
Is it just that you're not a fan of Aquanet and you don't want to have the 20-foot high hair?
Yeah, right. I'll just stay behind the camera.
Oh my God. And that's kind of wild that it was more about the creation than it was the consumption. That's, I read a crazy amount. I still read a crazy amount, and it took a while. The school I went to was pretty rough. You say that about your teacher encouraging you, whereas mine was a science teacher who was kind of a bigger dude. And he was like, no, you can be a football player and listen to opera. It's okay.
Yeah.
That was his, because it's a longer story about him and I somehow talking about classical music. He's like, you ever listen to opera? I was like, I'm too tough, And he's like, shut up. Here's some opera. Take this home and listen to it.
That's awesome.
And yeah, that's what he encouraged me. He didn't encourage me to write. He encouraged me. He's like, nah, go knock some heads on the football field and then go home and listen to an area when you get home.
That's awesome. I have a friend who studied with something similar. He studied criminal justice, but also was offered a full ride for opera singing. And
holy crap.
The juxtaposition there. But he ended up going with the criminal justice degree, supplementing a ton of classes of singing too. But I really love that.
It can't be an episode of Ramblin' Man with somebody who doesn't live here without me selling my city throughout. Yeah. There was one episode I did, God love them. There's this couple who runs this company called Hellcats, and I felt like 75% of the podcast was me trying to get them to come to Knoxville.
I'm sold. When I went there, I was like, I'm moving here. So,
well, I was going to say, there's a smaller opera company here called Marble City Opera. And they do opera, I hate to say in the wild, but just out in the middle. It'll be at a church courtyard in the middle of the city. Or they did one, there was an old marble factory company here. And they had, the front office and the building is still there, and it's amazing. But in their front office, they did an opera with one woman performing the entire thing by herself.
Wow.
So you're sitting there and it's 25 people and you're touching knees and there are times where she literally, I think she jumped on my lap at one point. She would grab people and pick them up and it's the best thing ever. And it's my friend who performs with them, but he's also their marketing director. He is actually writing an opera right now called I Can't Breathe, because he is a black man. And he's written some operas that are about what it's like being black in America. And they're performed in freaking East Tennessee.
That's awesome.
In the middle.
Need that name from you.
Yeah. Marble City Opera.
Oh, it's still the same. Okay.
Yeah, I'll make a note. Any of my homework.
That's so cool. Something kind of similar in the sense of bringing music somewhere that you wouldn't think to be listening to it. I have a friend who's also a writer, Anastasia, and she and a friend or partner of hers they bring their violin and their piano up to the top of a mountain summit, and then they do a performance, and they're called the Musical Mountaineers, I believe. And so it's pretty cool to that they're hiking with their, violin and a full electric piano, up the mountain, and then we'll play. It's pretty cool and spectacular to see.
That's crazy. So I'll have to send you another video. That's one of my favorites. It's Chris Thiele and Edgar Meyer.
Oh, nice.
And do you know who Chris Thiele is?
He plays the banjo?
Mandolin. Yeah. He does Garrison Keillor's show, Prairie Home Companion, when Garrison Keillor went bye-bye, Chris Thiele kind of took it over.
Yeah.
And Nickel Creek, Punch Brothers,
Yep.
So him and this guy, Edgar Meyer, who's this world-renowned bass player, they played in the middle of a field. And the camera just kind of whip pans around them as it's insane. So I added that to the note.
Awesome.
to you. It's interesting to see that. That's what I was saying. Like with the music festivals we have here, one called Big Ears, which is all this weird, the most experimental and abstract music you could ever think of. And it's the same thing. Like it'll be performed in a church, be performed in a courtyard. And then Rhythm and Blooms is usually more of like an Americana, folky kind of series. Although there's some people who've played it that it's like, wait, they're not really either one of those, but okay. Yeah, we'll take that.
I did go to the Rhythm and Blooms when I was there.
Okay.
It was happening the same weekend. And probably happens for more people, but for me, like I usually go to a show because I know who I'm listening to.
Right.
I was at this music festival I wasn't planning on going to, and we got to go, and then somebody was playing on the stage. Raylan Baxter is his name.
Yep.
And it was the first time that I can remember recently that I was like, just have never heard this person before. And like, you're under the underpass of a highway, and there's, Americana, like music playing, and it was really cool. And now I'm like really a big fan of him. So there's a lot of experiences of me during that trip to Knoxville where I was like, just moment, like just such a unique city and like really cool, authentic people and experiences that you just wouldn't forget. Yeah,
it's wild because growing up here, it was always more of a college town first than anything else. And it was a little rough when I was growing up, like the downtown, you had Market Square and there's that little park next to it, Crutch Park.
Yep.
Although I don't know if it's Crutch or Crutch, but it's Crutch in my brain. But they like homeless people doing drugs, like just scattered throughout that park when I was growing up, bars on the windows in Market Square. And now to see it to where people are coming here because of that.
Yeah.
Or the crazy great food scene here.
Yeah. Or your beer. Gotta love your beer.
Yeah. It's, man, the beer is getting massive. Although it seems I think COVID slowed a lot of that down. Like it was just crazy, like new brewery. Yeah. But now it's kind of tempered down. But I feel like, and I'm curious what you think about this. I'm curious how much when you travel or you look for things in city, like say you're going to somewhere like Des Moines, Iowa, and you're going to look for places. Like, how do you look for those places? Because I feel like sometimes the places that are on the Yelp lists or on the best of lists are not the best places. You have to go deep dive in some neighborhood to find the cool place.
I mean, it's a good question. I also like try not to be that like very obvious tourist who's like going to the bartender and being like, where do you go for fun? Although sometimes I like suck it up and do that so that I can figure out where to go. I don't know if everyone's like a social media person, but I think Instagram has been like really awesome to find places with the geotags if people are willing to like share their secret spots. And I usually, if I'm going to a place, will like look up it. Because when I travel, I like to hike, I like to drink beer and be outside and listen to music. So I'll search for hashtags related to like beer Knoxville and then start diving in and finding places to go. So I found Instagram to be super helpful through that. And then, I mean, I mentioned before, like I love road tripping. So just like if I go somewhere, I really, really want to have a car so that I can just drive around and find some spots and pull off and check them out. So I think it's like a combination of doing research ahead of time and then not really having a plan and letting yourself explore. Yeah,
it's my biggest hot take on Knoxville is for decades, they've said the best hamburger is this one certain place, which I don't want to mention because I don't want to crap on them. Even to the point of like, I'm trying to remember Kirk Street, one of the football announcers. Anytime he comes to Knoxville, he's like, well, I got to go to this burger place. I'm like,
Yeah.
that place sucks. And it sucked for a long time.
Yep.
And I wish you would stop going. And there was one point where there was the best burger place was literally a block. Like you could throw a football from one location to the other. And I was like, just go there. Please go there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I think, yeah.
That's always my question with people who actually do this for a living is like, man, how do you not get sucked into the trap of this is where everybody goes?
Yeah. I think relating to like what I do for fun, which is like write about my experiences when I'm traveling, like I think there is this boom of like smaller creators who are finding awesome, cool things that they're doing and writing about, and like us everyday people reading and trying to figure that out and learn from them, like having more trust in the little people like me. Like I'm not going to say I'm like a big writer. I'm not. But I think, we're used to like just Googling and going to the big media sites and like figuring out what to do, or the Yelps or whatever. But there's a lot more trust in like just learning from everyday people. And I think that creators and people willing to put their thoughts and ideas and work out there are being found more. And then you're learning from their experiences. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I see that a lot in like a good example, because I'll never miss an opportunity to crap on Nashville. That's a big East Tennessee, West Tennessee thing, is to crap on Nashville.
Yeah.
But whenever I go to Nashville, or if you were going there and you asked me for places, I would never send you downtown, because I was like, all this is going to be chains or corporate companies that are coming in that spend a lot of money. This is not where the cool shit's at. The cool shit is on the edge of town. And I always joke about, Nashville hot chicken has become this big thing. And everybody's like, well, you got to go to Prince's, or you got to go to Hattie B's. I was like, nah, you got to go to Bolton's. I was like, I am a Knoxville boy who grew up on the black side of town. The black people go to Bolton's. I'm going to go to Bolton's. That's where the good hot chicken's going to be. Yeah. And a lot of the white people have not figured that out. And I'm like, yes, more Bolton's for me, man. But it's on the edge. Like, it's not, I was like, yeah, don't go downtown. Where you want to go downtown is when you're in some tiny town out on the outskirts, like a Dandridge or something, where you can go and spend time and look at antiques and crap like that, to where you find a bakery that's been there for 70 years. Yeah.
I mean, I love talking and writing about small town travel too. And I think that's also growing in the travel scene, just like, especially with COVID, not being able to travel far to the big places. Like, you're going to obviously have a great time in Portland, but you're not traveling there right now if you're in Chicago, or at least I'm not. So, like, that's why road tripping and these smaller town trips like are super fun. A friend of mine always jokes that like the best towns are the towns that have one of the best of everything. So like, they have the best taco place and the best, place to drink a beer at a hole in the wall. And like, I also enjoy those towns because they're like limit on what you can do, but like, at least they've got one of everything. So those small town trips are kind of fun because you're not searching for the best thing. You're just experiencing what they have. Yeah.
And it's also kind of wild. And like I said, my friend that came in, she came in from Colorado, and we got a cabin in North Georgia. And then she came and stayed in Knoxville for a couple of days. And I kind of took her around a little bit, but it was kind of, because of COVID, it's kind of limited in what you can do. Yeah. Like, there were a couple of restaurants I wanted to take her to, but like one of them closed at 2:00 on a Wednesday because they just don't have enough business on Wednesday nights. And the other one, because they're carry out only, they shut down their website at like 6:00 because they have so many orders. That takes them to the close. But what I kind of learned on that experience, I was like, well, I need to take you to these places. And a couple of them were cocktail bars. And we went to the first one. I was like, you got to go here because it's really cool. And it's an experience. And then we went, and the cocktail sucked. And I was pissed because I was like, she was like, I have a very low tolerance, so you're not going to take me to a lot of places. Like, damn it. So I felt like I kind of wasted. So now I know, I was like, just go with my gut. And it is a cool experience, but it's not good. So screw that place. No offense, but screw that place.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of measure that when you go, like, experience, like, I hate to sell them out, but it's a speakeasy bar. Like, you actually have to know a code word to get in, and it's real leathery and cool, but the cocktails are terrible.
Yeah.
They were terrible. They were so terrible. Like, the balance for the quality versus experience. Yeah.
I almost think, like, when you're going to a place, especially if it's like food or drink or whatever, a big influence for me is just like the atmosphere and the people too. Like, and I guess that's why I don't write about food and necessarily critique beer. Like, I want to go and like have an awesome vibe and experience and like talk to cool people and like have nice bartenders. So, I guess it's like not getting your hopes up or setting expectations or like going just because they have the best burger. Like, I try to find places that I think, looking visually and checking them out online, like that I think I'm going to like fit with the vibe of the place. And usually the atmosphere is what I look for. So, and especially with COVID now, it's like, if you're like being outside and being outdoors, like trying to find places that have that mix of like being outside. And I think a lot of places that are surviving are the ones that have like mixed like the outdoor experience with what they do, whether it's beer or food or entertainment or whatever. So, I think a lot of breweries and where I go and travel, like a lot of breweries that have like awesome outdoor spaces and just have that energy and vibe to it that I'm looking for are the ones that are thriving. Yeah.
Are you seeing that more? That seems to be a little bit more of a trend now with breweries, that it's very much has an outdoor element to it. Like I don't know if it's by I need more coffee or something to figure out what that phrase is. Was it necessity of all evil? Like, because a lot of them had to start out in like old warehouses or abandoned manufacturing plants, to where they have, the big double doors that they have to open.
Yeah.
And it seems like a lot of them have embraced that, or if they didn't have to do that, they're going to do that anyway, because that's what you do. And I don't know also if that's a Southern thing, because the weather is temperate here. Like Chicago, it may be harder because it gets so cold in the wintertime, but
yeah, I think Chicago's hard. It's hard to find, an outdoor brewery or places that have like that good outdoor atmosphere necessarily. But I don't know, like, again, this is just me talking about myself and my opinions, but like, of course, if I go to a brewery, because that's a thing I love to do, and I drink beer and it's really crappy, like, I'm going to be a little bit disappointed. But again, it's like, I think craft breweries were known for like creating really interesting beers. And like, maybe that's why you were going to them, or a lot of people were. It's like, they want to try something really different and like really good. But I think because there are so many craft breweries now, like you can get good beer a lot of places. So like, I think a lot of places are trying to focus on that, like, the experience you have there in person. And like, I think, I don't know how you feel about this, but again, the outdoor thing, like everyone's trying to get into nature and like reconnect with nature. And, I think places are making a more of a concerted effort to like give patrons, one, because they have to because of COVID, but like building an outdoor experience that connects to their brewery. And it doesn't have to be like in the middle of the woods, although there are some really cool breweries, which in my like home state, Michigan, like that are literally in the middle of a farm on like the west side of Michigan in the middle of nowhere. And it's like, I love drinking beer here next to the sheep. This is so cool. But in Chicago, even just like there's beauty, like sitting in an alleyway behind like an old like manufacturing building where this brewery would never have access to open their doors to a patio back there now. And it's like, cool, I'm drinking beer next to a rat running down this alley in the middle of Chicago.
Hey, now that rat is going to run for mayor next year, and you will be behind. No, I'm just kidding. I've been to New York. I've been to Chicago, good Lord, 3 or 4 times. And it's been interesting every time the changes. Like when I went in 2003, it was, we stayed out in, now now I'm going to blank on what it was called. One of the suburbs right on the edge.
Yeah.
It was where the convention center was because we were there for a Comic-Con. Rosemont. There you go. So we stayed out there, and my friends that I went with, they did not want to leave the hotel. They're like, we're going to go to the convention, and then when we get done, we're going to go back to our hotel room and we will order in food.
Yeah.
And I had to yell at them a lot of like, can we at least go to the hotel bar and get a drink? You're killing me, man.
Yeah.
And then I went. I'm trying to think. I went a few more times. I went for work, and then I went last time just to see baseball because I'm trying to get to every MLB stadium, and I had not been to either one of those in Chicago. And that was a trip. That was a freaks. Here, I'm going to go down a rabbit hole. I'm going to ramble a little bit and tell you 2 funny stories that happened last time I was there because I freaked out 2 different people. One was at a cigar shop, Ralph's Cigars, which I love. And I went, and you couldn't smoke inside, but you could smoke outside. So I walked out, and there were 2 different groups of guys sitting out. You could only smoke out on the sidewalk or on the stoop. And so I went out, and I sat with one group of guys. And one guy was kind of watching me, and he was like, "You're not from here, are you?" I was like, "Nope." He's like, "Okay, where are you from?" I was like, "East Tennessee." He's like, "Oh, where in East Tennessee?" I was like, "Knoxville." He was like, "Oh, my cousin owns a landscaping business there." I was like, "Oh, you mean Deirdre?" And he was like, "What the?" So the 2 groups one was a group of white dudes and one was a group of black dudes. And I went and sat with the black. And I was like, "Dude, you're talking about a female black landscape. There's the one."
Yeah.
There's the one. And I'd met her a week before.
Wow.
And so he sat there for an hour just freaking out. Like, I can't. I was like, "Dude, that's Knoxville. I don't know what to tell you. Everybody knows somebody, man."
Yeah.
And the other one was sitting at the Cubs game. And this guy next to me was like, the lady on one, it was funny. The entire game was this and this. It was me talking to the lady next to me because she started talking to me. And then when I got done with her, the guy next to me would start talking to me. I was like, "Can I watch the game?" I was like, "What the hell, man?"
You should be used to this with your Southern soul.
Yeah. Well, that's why I didn't say, "Hey, y'all, shut the hell up. I'm trying to watch." But the lady started talking to me. And it was the same thing. She was like, "Oh, my family goes to blah, blah, blah city in Tennessee every year for a summer trip." And I was like, I don't know where that's at. And she was like, "Oh, it's a suburb of Nashville." I was like, "Oh."
Yeah.
I was like, "Okay, well, do you do the hot chicken?" And she was like, "Yeah, we go to Hattie B's." I was like, "White people bullshit. You need to go to Bolton." And I was fussing at her. "You need to go Bolton's." And apparently I was so loud, the dude next to me was like, "So you're from the South?" And I was like, "Fuck, yes, I am." And he's like, "Well, have you ever heard of London, Kentucky?" I was like, "I've got a lot of family up there." And he's like, "What the fuck?" Okay. He's like, "Nobody." He's like, he lived in Pennsylvania and traveled for work. And the stop was London, Kentucky. That was the southernmost point. And it was all by like train. And it was funny because he was like, "No one ever knows where that is." I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "You want me to start rattling off some names to see if you know?" And he was like, "No, don't do that. Please don't do that." And it kept bouncing back and forth. That's what I love about traveling was meeting people. Like I met a dude at a cigar shop in Brooklyn or in New York that he was writing a PhD paper thesis on like molecular biology, and he wanted me to read it.
Okay.
And then
How did you comprehend it?
Yeah, I'm like, "Dude, I barely graduated high school. What the hell are you talking about?" And then he was also a trumpet player in a jazz band and wanted me to come out to Brooklyn to see him perform at like 2 a.m. Wow. I was like, "Dude, I got to get on a plane in Jersey at 5 o'clock. I can't." I was like, now I look back, I was like, "Damn it, I should have done that."
That's exactly what I'm saying. Like, round out the conversation about how, like if you get your hopes up about like eating the best food, like that might ruin your experience. I'm not going to speak for everybody, but it's like, it's the people you meet. And like, it's cool that you're able to, like, you remember those connections with those people.
Oh, yeah.
And you do, smoking the best cigar of your life.
There was actually, I think it was like episode 2 of Ramblin' Man, was me talking to a friend because I'd just gotten back from that Chicago. It was Chicago and Detroit was that trip. And I was talking about this weird thing of dudes being able to make fast friends in cigar shops and bars. For some reason, you're sitting there. It's almost like you're going to be sitting there for like 3 hours.
Yeah.
So you just start talking to, and I don't think it's a Southern thing because I experience it everywhere.
Yeah.
And just start talking. So for you, when you go out and travel, are you a little bit more insular, or do you like to talk to people? And you were saying, you didn't want to be the one asking the bartender, well, where's the cool place to go?
No, I think I like to talk to people. I think, like patrons. Like I have a cool story of one of the magazines I write for is Backpacker magazine, and it goes back to our, like I was actually writing about the closest brewery to the Appalachian Trail, and we were visiting this brewery, and I got a beer, and then I saw some backpackers sitting there, and like I started talking to them, and I'm not a long distance trail hiker, ironically, writing for Backpacker. I like to cover more short weekend trips because I am in the city. But I started talking to these backpackers who were had been on the trail for like a month and a half or something, and they were pit stopping. And that's where I learned about like the whole idea of getting a trail name when you're on the trail. And this girl goes by the name Zippy. And it's like you get named a trail name as you embark on your journey, or maybe something funny happens to you on the trail, and you learn you learn from that, and then you get named after it. But I forget exactly why Zippy. Maybe her zipper broke in her bag or something, and she had to deal with like an unzippable sleeping bag. But anyways, I think I find myself talking to more of the patrons like you're talking about too. And that goes back to like just trying to find places that I know that I might jive with in the first place.
And God, I hate saying that this also, here's a phrase that does not sound good coming out of a Southern accent, but I also know it is 2020 and there are some questions where I'm afraid to ask, but it's like, I'm also like a big dude. And so the question I always wonder is like, is it easier for me to get into those scenarios with people than it is for, you can kick my ass, karate, man. You're going to take out my knees and I'm going to be hobbling. And I'm not meaning it in that way at all, but I'm just, because I remember the first time I went to New York, I had a bunch of friends that were like, you need to carry money in your front pocket, tell me all this stuff. I was like, who the hell's going to mess with me? Like, who's going to, I don't mean that in an arrogant way. It's just like, let's see, the family that their kids are going nuts that I can grab her purse and run away, or the big giant dude who looks like he may just hit me on top of the head and factory reset everything. Yeah. Is that harder, or have you found it that people are just people and it's fine? Is there may not be a question in there. Yeah.
I don't know. I think, fun fact, I'm gay and I come off very gay. So I look for people who might like have I have good gaydar. I call myself, I think I have pretty good gaydar. So maybe I'm like talking to people who I get a good feeling about, even though we shouldn't stereotype people, but, I don't know. I get nervous going to small towns sometimes, especially for that reason when I'm traveling with my partner. I've got, a more, I like to wear men's clothes. Like I, go to small towns sometimes to go on these hiking trips, and we're in the back country and my partner has super shortcut hair and like, we look like a couple. And, so I get nervous sometimes, but, again, it goes back to like my gut feeling of trying to find places that I feel comfortable in. And that just goes into research ahead of time and then just gauging the situation and who I want to talk to when I'm there. So, yeah.
Oh, there was a buddy of mine. God, I'm worrying what I can say because he actually approved this. So I hope this is not coming off as inappropriate, but he is from California. Mm-hmm. He's got abs that made me call him a son of a bitch every time I saw him, and he liked to wear little tiny shorts, and he had the what's it called, the Frosted Tips in 2016. I was like, dude, what are you doing, man? And him and his boyfriend would go running through Market Square. And as I'm sitting there eating like a piece of cake, I'm like, you assholes. I was like, and he and I were talking one time. He's like, I was scared shitless to come to East Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, dude, because you're a level above gay, man. You're like California, like you're used to you being okay. And I was like, but so he had been here like a couple of years. I was like, have you had any problems down here? He's like, hell no.
Yeah.
He was like, there was one point where he said, oh, I went to, and he mentioned like a town that is scary. Yeah. Like in this last election, it didn't vote red. It voted crimson. Like one of those type towns where he's going to a lake. And he walked in, he was going in to get beer. And as he bent over to pick up the beer, he realized he was wearing a cutoff shirt that said "I Heart Boys" on it. Oh, it was bright pink, and I was like, "Jesus, dude, dude, you're in this. Oh God, you're killing me, man!" And so he immediately put the beer above his shirt, in front of his shirt, walked up, had him ring it up, and walked out. And I was like, "Did anybody say anything to you?" And he's like, "No." No. I was like, but I guarantee you, once that door closed, it was bless his heart. He doesn't know. Yeah. That poor boy. Like he doesn't know where he's at.
We really wanted to go on our honeymoon that I told you about when we road tripped up to the UP. There's this tiny town in the UP of Michigan, which is like super rural. And there's a town called Gay. And there's a gay there's a place called the Gay Tavern in Gay, Michigan. Yeah. And we were on our gay honeymoon, and I was like, we have to go. Like, this is such a missed opportunity if we do not go to this place. And it's definitely, I have a feeling, one of those places that you walk in and you are not in a gay bar. But we tried to drive there, and then we got stuck in a snowstorm in the middle of October in Upper Peninsula, Michigan. So we'll have to tell you how it goes eventually one day, but we hope to make it back there.
And the tag for the photo is gay cubed. It's just like, I've been to Hell, Michigan in the dead of. So which part of Michigan are you from?
I grew up in Metro Detroit, the west suburbs of Detroit. And yeah. Where's Hell, Michigan again?
It's around. So my uncle taught high school at Novi High School.
Oh, I went to Northville High School, which is next. It's our rival school.
Oh, is it really? And him and my aunt and my two cousins lived in Pinckney, Michigan.
Yeah.
So isn't that west of Detroit? West and kind of south a little bit. I think.
It's very close to where I grew up. Yeah.
And her family, my aunt's family, is from Ypsilanti, Ypsi, whatever. One of my buddy, one of the biggest graphic designers in the world right now is this guy named Aaron James Draplin, and he's from up there, and he calls it Ypsitucky. And I was like, I'm sure my aunt would love to hear you say that. She'll kick your ass, man. I had some amazing hot chicken in Ypsilanti. I know it's Ypsilanti, but I keep wanting to say Ypsilanti. There was this tiny, oh God, there's one for you. Tiny little, like I can almost touch both sides of the building, and it's just crammed in between two other big ones, and it's hot chicken. And I think one of them is called like Hot as a Motherfucker. Like, and the guy behind the counter was like, oh yeah, they will fucking kill. I was like, whoa, I'm not used to hering cussing like this, dude. Yeah. It was great. Yeah.
The only hot chicken that I know of in the city, and it's only because I love chicken. I should go more places here, but they have a Gus's here. Is that bad? That's bad.
If you go to the original one in Memphis, it's good. Yeah. But a lot of the franchisees, it's not. That's I was about to. Well, I can shit on them. I don't care. There's a place in Asheville called Tupelo Honey that used to be one of the best places in Asheville. And then they start franchising, and it's all dog shit. Like, it's all terrible. Yeah.
One of the places we like to go, and my partner works in Inglewood, Chicago. It's a neighborhood on the south side. It's near Hyde Park, and there's this place in Hyde Park called Ragin' Cajun, and it's like it's a Cajun food place that also serves Indian food, but they have the best fried chicken that I've had in the city. It's like so random.
I'm going to have to find it. The last time I was up there, I was over near one of the college campuses. And God, am I going to be able to find this? I miss the old iPhone where you could actually just pull up a map and look at photos to find things. Damn it. There's an insane amount. Oh, no. There's an insane.
Is it UIC or University of Illinois Chicago?
No, it's one of the big ones.
University of Chicago, Northwestern.
What maybe starts with an M?
Marquette.
It was on Marquette's campus. Mm-hmm. I took way too many photos at the White Sox game, so I know when I scroll through to just look for that White Sox photo, the 20 White Sox photos. But it had a weird name, and it was a place on it that was this little shack that they had like burgers and dogs.
Yep. There's so many good ones like that in the city.
Milkshakes. I had went to some hipster joint because they had Benton's Bacon that's from East Tennessee. And I got told, they're like, you have to go there. So I went there. I was like, that's a little too hipster, not enough sustenance.
Yeah.
And I was really kind of bummed that I didn't go to this other place that I think was here we go, Marquette. Let's see, there's Detroit. Devil Dogs.
It sounds familiar. Yeah.
It's, oh God, this is going to be terrible. Me showing you on a.
Oh yeah. I mean,
it's literally just a shack.
Oh yeah. And it was good though.
The milkshake was, I am a milkshake connoisseur.
Yeah.
It was.
Do you have a Chicago hot dog?
I don't eat hot dogs.
Oh, okay. Got it.
I ate one hot dog when I was 4 years old and got so violently ill that even the smell through college would make me sick.
Okay. We all have that thing. Mine is Cheerios. I can't eat Cheerios.
Really? Cheerios?
Yeah.
Huh. No, I have tons of. That's the other weird thing. So, are you pretty adventurous when it comes to food or beer? Although I know you are with beer because you had a damn pickle beer when you were. I
know. I was going to bring that up. Today. Yeah. I think I'm down to try any beer, to be honest. But food, I'm pretty. I am not a big raw onion fan. Don't like onions that much, but I'm pretty adventurous. I've randomly had alligator before of all places, Madison, Wisconsin, which doesn't make much sense to me at all why they had that there. But it's adventurous to even try alligator in Wisconsin because who knows how it got there. But I'll try it.
Okay. Yeah, I try pretty much anything, but the stuff I don't like, I'm done. I was like, I don't like sushi. And I still have friends tell me, they're like, you're wrong. I was like, no, I've tried. And it's just not my bag, man. Give me the 1 pound burger with half a pound of bacon on it. I will destroy that. But sushi. I'm out.
I'm definitely go for seconds in food category versus like have dessert. I definitely eat more food over dessert too. I don't know how you feel about that.
I'm a sweet tooth. I absolutely destroy any kind of sweets. I'm a glutton. I just go for everything.
Don't miss it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's always one thing. Do you ever, when you're, so when you're traveling, let's say you go to a brewery, since you're more brewery versus food, do you ever kind of get bummed? Like if you have like only 3 days in a place and you go to a place and it kind of sucks, does it feel like a wasted opportunity or something? Yeah.
And I think it does. I think so. Sometimes like too, like I'm traveling for an assignment and it's like, you've got to go to these places. So then you're kind of stuck with the cards that you're dealt. But I think so. Especially when like, I can't get over bland beer. Like I trust me, like I love like a good lager, like but also like I love a PBR or like a Miller. But when you like, when I would expect that a craft brewery could pull off like a standard lager, but any like extremely watery craft beer, it's like, what's going on here? I'd rather be drinking a pickle beer than this water tasting beer.
I'm sure, didn't you like the pickle beer?
It was good. Like that would be so good with like as a Bloody Mary sidecar beer. Like,
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I'm a weirdo in that I pretty much only drink stouts. Like,
oh yeah.
Anything else, I'm like, nope, I don't like the hops. I don't like IPAs. And my friends make fun of me for drinking stouts in the middle of summertime. I'm like,
yeah.
It's like liquid candy. That's
it's like a whole meal. It's like a drink when you drink a Bloody Mary. It's like a whole meal. Sometimes it was like peanut butter stouts or something like that.
Bring them on.
A friend of mine and my friend lives in Seattle. We're doing a cross-country beer exchange where we're collecting beers of the style each other likes and then mailing it to each other.
Nice.
So I'm like currently collecting. She likes stouts too. She likes stouts and sours. So I'm sending her a pack of very different beers. And then I'm taking the saisons and like the lagers. But
I wish. Isn't it kind of sketchy to mail beer?
Yeah, I might be getting in trouble for this down the road. Talking on your podcast about mailing beer.
Well, we didn't say anything in particular, and because I tried to mail a bottle of bourbon to. I know this is completely different, but to Australia, and it was going to cost 5 times the amount of. And even that, they're like, and it's kind of illegal.
Yeah.
I was like, who cares? Who gives a shit? Like,
I hope they just ask me, is this fragile? And I say no. Yeah. I'm going to mail some cans. So I hope we're okay. But
I hate to say, it. I think a lot of times they're like, is there anything liquid in here?
Oh, great.
And that's the
Maybe
part.
We didn't think this through very well.
No, because I was thinking, so Knoxville has even grown more since you've been here. We've got one place that's out west that's a really good brewery called Abridged that they just opened a sours only closer to my house. And a new place called Zool that they focus on kind of like pastry stouts.
Oh, nice.
And stouts that they just opened up in an old car dealership that has this cool like round windowed that's where their bar's at. Like it's amazing. And but they've done some tests where they've like made beer and just set up at a bar, and they had a habanero. I'm not a huge sour person, but they had a habanero sour. It was one of the best beers I've ever had.
Yeah, that sounds so good.
Yeah.
And what about I don't know how you feel about this brewery. I hope it's okay. Pretentious Beer.
Yeah, that's my buddy Matt.
Yeah, that was such a cool experience, like being able to go and like see people glass blowing while they're filling and then fill your cup up with beer. You know, it was hand blown by those artists.
And I'm not going to say if y'all, whenever y'all come back, we'll talk more. But Matt, he's in kind of a group of people that we're all small business owners. So we were sitting there one time hanging out, and he was talking to us. He was bringing out different glasses with different beer. And he was like, I literally made this glass for this beer because it has these things in it that will, maintain this, and this. He was like, this is my stout glass because you want to hold this glass. Whereas this glass is an IPA glass because you don't want to hold it. And it was crazy hearing him talk about it.
Yeah, it was really cool. Just so quirky, like with the, you can tell that he blew the glass and then he set it sideways so that your glass was, it should be sitting this way, but it's got the impression of the base of the beer tipped sideways. It was really cool. He
is, so here's a fun fact about him. I'm trying to remember what the exact thing is, but he is the number one, I think, money-wise seller on Etsy.
Really?
Yeah, his glasses.
Wow.
Yeah. They are not cheap. They are not cheap glasses.
Yeah. Talk about doing something you love and turning it into a job. That's awesome.
He shout out. He was on an episode of Ramblin' Man about 10 episodes back, I think.
Oh, cool. I'm going to listen to that. That's awesome.
Where I interviewed him about that and stuff.
That's so cool.
So when it comes to, so you're mainly doing domestic. So have you traveled any abroad, or is that a goal eventually to travel abroad?
I've traveled abroad a few times. I've been on an assignment, like traveling for writing once, abroad. And it was amazing. I still to this day think I got invited by accident because it was just such an amazing experience. And I'm like, how am I here? But we went to Finland. A group of writers went to Finland, and we got to do a mix of Helsinki, city experience. And then we flew to Lapland, which is like on the Arctic Circle, past the Arctic Circle, and in like the true heart of winter wonderland, like, reindeers running around you and going from a sauna into jumping into an ice hole in the middle of a lake. Like it was really wild. So that was truly like probably the best experience I've ever had for a writing trip. And I'd love to do more. But like I said, like when you're on an assignment, you don't always get to do like what you want. So I do take advantage of, if we're on a trip, just enjoying it for myself. And then, and I actually, I'm a writer, more so for fun than for income. I do it in addition to working many jobs that keep me paid. So then that's good because I can spend time enjoying traveling. And I've met some writers before who only travel because they have to write about it. And sometimes that takes away the excitement. But anytime I'm traveling, I'm thinking about stories along the way. Yeah.
And is there anybody you specifically, like, you're writing for, isn't Backpacker pretty big? Like, is there still somebody you like, I would eventually like to write for this publication or news organization?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think like the big outdoor magazines, like Outside Magazine would be awesome to do. Although like I do write for a lot of smaller magazines, and it's cool because you have more ownership over how your story turns out, both on the sense of editors, because they have smaller teams and smaller bandwidth, maybe to like not edit the shit out of your article. And then it turns out how I want it to turn out. And also like getting the opportunity to like submit my own photos for my articles. So I think there's smaller like niche publications. Like there's a publication called Rova that talks about road tripping and RVing. And it's like something I want to learn more about doing. So maybe writing for them would be just as exciting, to be honest, as an outside magazine. And it goes back to what I'm saying about like these smaller publications and creators having more, getting more eyes because people are looking for those niche, like authentic experiences versus the giant media sites.
And the giant media ones also seem to sometimes be a little bit more beholden to their advertisers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And think about the actual content second.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Well, something I'm doing, that I'm talking about so that I continue to hold myself accountable is writing. I think I'm going to produce a zine soon about Chicago outdoor adventure. And that's the thing. It's like, I want to start doing more for me as well. Because when you're beholden to an advertiser, or you've got to insert a product into the story or something like that, it takes away the excitement and the creativity. And so, coming up in 2021, I'm sure I'll produce this magazine that I've got in my head, and also be able to flex my artistic muscle and just doing some little illustrations and stuff too.
Nice.
And taking all the experiences that I do for fun in Chicago and turning it into a resource for people to use. And again, it's not going to get a ton of eyes, but it's kind of the fun project that I'm really excited about to turn, everyday experiences in the city into something that people might learn from. So.
Oh yeah, 100%. And also if you're showing them, like you were talking about how it's kind of limited, but if you can also show them, we've got this place that's 20 minutes from the city. That's a great place to get outside and do things like if you're not, because I also think about a big city like that is how many people there are from somewhere else where they long for something like that. To be able to get outside and do things that that may not seem as a default or something that would be easy for them.
Yeah, exactly. And similar to like with the big magazines, like like going to a major news site in Chicago, you might be being directed to, the Starved Rock outdoor experience, which is like the place you hear about all the time. And it's like right now in COVID, do I really want to be going to like Starved Rock with everybody else and their family and their 10 children? So I think that's where like smaller creators are like myself, like I'm excited to start making things guides on my own terms so that people can learn and go.
How do you, when it comes to like the publications, either ones you've written for before or the ones you look to write for, do you have to pitch them or are you seeing them kind of come in to find you? I feel like with like social media that there's an opportunity with your following for them to find you.
Yeah. It takes time to build that following. And I'm starting to get inquiries about just advice. And one example is I've started doing radio interviews for WILL, which is a local NPR station in Southern Illinois about outdoor travel. In the Midwest. And so they found my pictures on my Instagram. And I was talking to you about that too. Like that's searching to find things and they found me and they invited me on a show. And now I'm recurringly coming back to talk about seasonal travel. So that's exciting. And I think like you're saying, like, where do you want to be? Like I challenge myself especially because I'm doing this for fun and kind of on the side of who like setting goals for the new year, like new year, who do I want to write for? And like, what stories do I want to tell and kind of setting those goals for myself. And in those situations, I might be pitching a new editor. And then the kind of the third bucket would be just people I've been consistently writing for that I do get the benefit of like them coming to me sometimes saying, hey, can you write this? So, it's nice to have a few options. Cause having to pitch everyone all the time is a lot of work. And so it's good to have some people, editors in your network that are willing to give you stories without you having to tell them what you want to write.
Yeah. And, I almost don't want to take it down a negative road, but it's kind of what we had talked about a little bit, what I told you beforehand about, I feel like there's this weird movement of like, I'm trying to think of a plot. Oh, hell, there's no way to say this. You're a legitimate travel writer, but it seems like you have all these people that it's more about, I almost want to do a fake selfie. And it's, it's more about trying to be an influencer personality. Yeah. So how is that? Do you feel like that is a real thing or do you have to combat that? Like trying to figure out like even on your own channels, how much to give of yourself versus how much to kind of leave it separate?
Yeah. I mean, that's part of the reason why like I'm at this point where I don't know that I want to dive into it full time because it would almost require me to become an influencer. Like I would have to be convincing people that I'm the person they want to let write this story. And so, yeah, I don't have a huge social media following. And it's exciting when people find my work and I'm like, I'm not doing much to market this. So I'm glad you saw it. So yeah, I think, and I've been on these trips, like the Finland one that I mentioned, where there are like influencers and people there. And I remember like literally sitting, in my Finnish experience, like in a sauna with another influencer who was there and just being like, yeah, this is my job. Like I'm working right now. And I was like, I'm vacationing right now. So it's hard. Like I'm still very much in that phase. Like I don't want to have to do this. I want to be traveling because I want to, and then finding the story about it. So, I'm still at that point, as cool as it would be to be paid full-time to travel, I think it would eventually become a very difficult thing to manage. And I've seen it happen before with some of my writing friends. So trying to find that balance right now.
I feel like it'd be kind of what you keep hitting upon. There'd be a lot of places where it'd be kind of hard to enjoy. Yeah. Like I've been to, there was a company I used to work for to where I'd get to go to a design conference every year. And whenever I did, the design conference would be 6 days. And I would always tell my boss, I was like, I am going to pay for my own hotel or Airbnb for 4 additional days so I can have me time. Yeah. Because when I'm at the conference, I'm on your all's clock and I'm focused.
Right.
But the minute I'm done, and it was funny because there were a couple of times we went with other people from the company and it would hit like we'd get out of our classes at 6 o'clock and they were like, well, what do you want to do? I was like, I've already scoped out these 5 restaurants. You need to choose between those. And then we're going to go to this place to go have a drink. And then we're going to go here to get ice cream. And And they're like, shit. And I was like, the minute I'm done, I'm going to have fun. I was like, because that's why this comedian's in town. We're going to go see,
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to enjoy the shit out of this. I don't want the day is killing me because you're sitting in a conference room bored out of your mind.
Mm-hmm.
God love all those presenters. They're amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, totally. Yeah, it's good. I think having a job on this, like a full-time job that's paying me, and then having writing on the side, actually, I'm more empowered and passionate about what I do outside of work, which is like sad to say. Like I'm not working my 9 to 5 because I'm like in love with it. I do love it. But I actually get more out of having this on the side right now, because when I log off for the day and I can jump into my writing work for freelance travel writing, I turn on a different switch, and I'm not just, cranking out work that I have to do.
Okay. Yeah. It's, what is it? You have the job to pay for all the fun shit you want to do.
Yeah.
I was thinking about earlier, because I've been working for myself for 4 years now. And I was thinking the other day I was like, what job did I make the most money? Mm-hmm. And then I started thinking about like, okay, this job is where I made the most money. I was like, and what did I do when I had that money? I was like, oh, I traveled like an idiot, and I bought a lot of art and music from people I admired. It's like, I spent all of that money. I did not save any of that money. I spent all that money on stuff that supported people or to enjoy. Yeah. Because sitting in a damn cubicle all day doing creative for people who didn't understand what the hell you were doing. Yeah. Like it's kind of soul crushing.
And I know for a while I'll be there one day where I'm ready to venture out on my own and do the freelance full time. And I think it's a smart move if there's any writers listening to like just start doing this on the side. And then I feel like I'm working my way there, and I'm nearly there of being able to do this for myself and doing it in a way that's sustainable for me. So we're almost there. We're gonna get there.
Well, okay. So what's funny, what'll be a little behind the scenes for whenever the podcast ends, I'm making notes of things that I'm going to politely fuss at you about, of like, okay, do this, do this. Cause I, part of my job is like digital marketing and SEO and all that stuff. So I have notes here of like, okay, I'm gonna wag my finger. Please start doing this.
Accountable. I know. And that's the thing. It's like make your. I need to make my own publication. It's like own my own content and get there myself.
And there are other things around that and now I shouldn't be talking about this on the podcast, because I'm going to talk to you when we get done with the podcast about all this, because I don't want to give away my tips to anybody listening. You can have them, but I'm not going to give them.
Thanks.
So let's wrap up the COVID wedding. What was that like?
Oh, wow. I felt so guilty. Like, I want to have my wedding. And I was like totally a bridezilla in the fact that I didn't want to give up, seeing my family and having them all there. But we did like completely cut our guest list. We always planned to have an outdoor kind of backyard style wedding down the street from our house at this little like tiny neighborhood church that we could use their yard. And we've got a good community there. So we ended up having it there still, just cutting our guest list like, to a third of what the whole total count was. There was 40 of us about, and all outside. And it was perfect and amazing. It was so much work. But I was really happy because a lot of my family do live in like smaller towns in Michigan, and the COVID restrictions aren't as hard there. Right. And for them to come to the big city of Chicago, and we're like, this is serious. We've all got to wear our masks. And they all showed up, and they were very respectful, wearing their masks and, following, social distancing. And we had separate areas for separate families. So there's just so many more elements of health and safety than I would have wanted to. I would have wanted to love to dance with my friends on like, all night and share beers and hang out. But it was very different, but we had a really good time, and it was beautiful and amazing.
Although here, I'm gonna get you to my light just went out, and I was like, I'm starting to look like a dark creature coming out of the abyss. Admit it though, there are some people you're like, thank God this is happening so we don't have to. I'm just kidding. We don't have to invite them.
I know. Yeah.
No comment.
I love my family. We'll leave it at that.
It was amazing to me because I've got a lot of friends who are wedding photographers or planners. And even at the height of this, seeing full bore, big, giant weddings happening.
Yeah.
It was hurting my brain. I was like, what the hell are y'all doing?
Yeah. It worked out in our favor that like we just have, I love my friends and we've got some really talented people. Like a friend of mine had these things were always planned, which we just feel so fortunate. Like I had a friend who's a photographer who was doing the photos. I have a friend who's a home brewer and he brewed all of the beer along with another friend. And we were outside in a space that we got for free because we're in this neighborhood and we know the people who own the space. So like, I could imagine if you had already booked like all of these things for a big elaborate wedding. And so it was a very like community fueled wedding where we had friends and family with their skills, like bringing their skills to the table and like helping us pull this thing off amid a crisis. But yeah, it was cool. And it was, great.
That's also good because if you're close to those people, then you know on what level of safe they've been this entire time.
Oh yeah.
So like the brewer, you can be like, oh no, they've been, social distancing, shutting down. So they're going to be good. It's almost like a relief or a check mark in your head of like, don't have to worry about that because they're good. Yeah.
And I think usually like I would expect, and we had planned to like not even talk to the family until they got there, like inviting people. It's like for me, I was like, oh, we're just going to invite them and they're going to show up. And that was like a year ago when we were planning this thing. But I actually had to pick up the phone and like talk to every single person who was coming and talk to them and make sure they were in tune with like the rules of the party. Yeah. And it wasn't just like, don't get too drunk. It was like, wear your mask the whole time. So there's different kind of things we were concerned about this wedding. It all worked out in our favor.
Yeah. Don't shake hands.
Yeah. Don't talk to people you don't know. Like,
It's kind of the same way down here in like the 4 big cities in Tennessee have more restrictions, but like the small 96 counties, the governor's just opened it up. He's like, they'll all be fine.
Yeah.
So I completely understand you on that of like, if you're in some tiny town with 5,000, 10,000 people, they're not going to understand some of that stuff.
Yeah. It's a lot of conversation. So, yeah.
But you all had it. It was beautiful. It was amazing. We're going to end on a positive here.
Yeah.
It was amazing. You got to go on a honeymoon. You got to read your 4 books.
Yep.
It was all good. And it was, they always joke and say, well, your wedding's the day you never forget. Well, sure as shit, the 2 of y'all will never forget that day.
We were also, again, bridezilla moment for me. Like we got married on 10/10/2020, which it's like, I won't forget it because of those numbers, but there are so many other reasons this will not escape my memory. So
nice. Well, that's a nice moment. Thank you for being on.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This was awesome and good to see you in general.
Yeah.